everyone. This is chapter 7. We are now starting public goods. My name is Dr. Gevrek, and we are going to be learning about public goods when you will see certain conditions are met. And let's get started without further ado. Okay, so in part 1, this is a little bit longer video. This is public goods and optimal provision. And in this part, we'll learn why public goods are underprovided by private parties. Okay, let's get started. So some markets do not work well because they have certain properties. Okay, so if a good has public good characteristics, then those markets tend to have an outcome that the good is underprovided. All right, so this is a very interesting example. In Dhaka, Bangladesh, there's a huge issue with trash. Okay, so there's public trash collection, but it is very inefficient, and privatization attempts have failed. Okay, so what's happening is that, imagine, may God prevent, if my trash is not collected for 2, 3, 4 weeks, even as a smaller household, I'm going to be in lots of trouble. My trash is going to overflow. Okay, so today, for instance, is Easter. Okay, and then after Easter celebrations, all those things, all the Holy Week, for those who celebrate, the trash overflows. So if the trash is not collected, it's going to be really interesting this week. Okay, so in Dhaka, Bangladesh, we have public trash collection system that has failed tremendously. So key problem is that some people actually are getting private services because they have money. And then what happens? Let me tell you what happens. So there's what we have, free rider problem. You experience free rider problem during the group assignments. Okay, so at the university, right, you're taking certain classes, and then you have a group of people doing an assignment, and let's say everybody has tasks, but one person usually, they don't do anything, and it gets really annoying for the rest of us. However, that's what we call free rider problem. So with free rider problem, you have with private voluntary system, each resident, what happens is that can sneak his or her garbage into neighbor's garbage. So let's say my neighbor has private collection, the city doesn't do its job. What I'll do is I can sneak my garbage to other people's garbage. So for instance, I am really sensitive about this. I walk my dog, who is just sitting right here, every day, and then he goes, does his business, number 2. So I pick it up in a baggie. Anyways, too much information. But I don't even personally put it in, and I tie it. I don't put it in people's trash cans. If it's the day before, trash collection, people put their trash cans out here in Texas. So I don't even want to put in their trash cans because I don't want to free ride. And also I don't want their trash cans to smell bad if the bag to be open, right? So I'm very sensitive. But imagine this is a big issue. You have no money. So people go ahead and sneak their trash in their neighbor's garbage. Oh my gosh. So eventually everybody does it, which is very scary. And no one pays trash collection voluntarily. So many people figured out this incentive to free ride. And only 50, this is crazy, only 50 out of 1,100 neighborhoods have private garbage collection. That's crazy. So this is a failure, of a public good. So it's very important for us to understand the role of public goods, folks. In this chapter, we'll learn role of government in providing public goods. So we are going to learn that private sector tends to underprovide public good. Okay, I'm gonna take a break. I'll be back. Okay, I fixed my voice issue. I'm back. The second issue is the notion of crowd out. So crowd out means when a public provision substitutes for already existing private provision of a good. So this can actually crowd out public provision. So connection to other topics is a cost-benefit analysis. We are actually going to start talking about cost-benefit analysis in the next chapter. In the last chapter, we started talking about externalities. That was the very first big topic in public finance we talked about. Now we have public goods, cost-benefit analysis. We are now getting deeper into the topic. I want you to remember first 3 chapters were to lay foundation to understand these topics. Okay, let's get started. First part is optimal provision of public goods. Okay, so pure public goods have two traits. You need to understand these. These are non-excludability and non-rivalry. Examples. I'm going to give you an example instead of just putting definitions. Non-excludability. Okay? 4th of July fireworks. I go outside, my city is putting a nice show in collaboration with, let's say, HEB, my favorite grocery store in Texas. So there's firework. Nobody can tell me, hey, Dr. Garrick, you know what? You're not going to watch this firework show. That means I am not to be excluded. Nobody can be excluded. Public goods have this non-excludability. Second to properties, the property number 2 is, my brain sometimes go fast. Property number 2 is, it is non-rival. That means me watching the firework doesn't prevent others from enjoying it. Everybody can look at the sky and watch it. So a pure public good has these two properties. Non-excludable, non-rival. Okay, let's go deeper into this. Let's now look at the definitions. Non-rival in consumption. The marginal cost of another person consuming the good is zero. Does not affect your consumption of the good. Guess what, folks? My YouTube videos are non-rival in consumption. That means you watching it doesn't prevent your classmates watching it. Or some students are emailing me from India, Africa. They were saying like, you single-handedly saved my semester labor economics class. I was teaching last semester and posting videos. So they were watching these videos all the way from India, China, and they were saying Africa as well. They were saying you saved our semester. That's non-rival because it's not hurting my own students. Number 2, non-excludable. I'm not excluding anybody. I'm posting these videos, putting myself out there, and there's no way I can tell people, oh, people from, let's say I'm from Turkey. People from Turkey can't watch these videos, okay? So my videos in some sense are public good. Here, if I go ahead and kick somebody out of my, let's say some people are leaving really bad comments in the sense that they're not nice comments. Not nice, but really inappropriate and abusive comments, let's say very bad, right? And then I can block those people. Then the moment I exclude them from my channel, that's not a public good, okay? So non-excludable means there's no way to deny someone to consume the good. Examples of public goods. Okay, so now this is a really cool table I made for you. We're going to define pure and impure public goods. We're also going to define private good. For instance, this water in my water bottle, this turns out to be, I am not sponsored by Stanley Cups and I didn't buy this, but I learned that these cups are really, really expensive. This cup is given to me by my godson for Christmas. So I was like, okay, this is cool. So, you know, okay, so look at this cup. It's really cool. It has a bear with wings. Anyways, long story short, these cups are like $50 and they go in the secondary markets for like triple the cost. I was like, really? It's a cool cup, but it's actually my tool right now trying to teach you what is a private good. Water in this cup is mine. Water in this cup is mine. It's a private good. Why? Because I can exclude others from using it. This is mine. You can't use it. Is it rival? Oh yeah. If I'm using it, nobody else can use it. That's a private good. Okay. So we have 4 goods. We have ice cream. We have cable TV. We have crowded city sidewalk and national defense. Okay. So we're going to learn which properties they satisfy. So is this good rival in consumption? Is it excludable? And if they're non-rival and non-excludable, that's a pure public good, which is national defense. We'll get to that. Okay, let's get started. So this table shows examples of pure public goods, impure public goods, and private goods, as I said. If a good is both rival and excludable, it's a private good. I also had my coffee. It is private as well. If I have ice cream, that's mine because it's rival. If I eat it, you can't eat it. Excludable, I can tell you, back off. Don't touch my ice cream. Okay, that's a private good. Ice cream is rival because my consumption of it prevents you from consuming the same ice cream. The only way for you to consume it is to make more ice cream. Makes sense. Ice cream is excludable. I can simply not share my ice cream or water or coffee with you. Some goods are impure public goods because they're either non-rival but excludable, or they are non-excludable but rival. Okay, so example is, for instance, cable TV is non-rival because if I have cable TV, I'm watching cable TV, I'm not preventing you from consuming that too. If you have cable hooked up, you can watch cable TV as well. Okay, it's excludable because the cable company can actually cancel your service or refuse to hook up the system. Cable company would be like, yeah, you didn't, Dr. Garrick, you didn't pay your bills, we're not going to provide you service, which is not very typical of my behavior, but it's okay, they can exclude. Other goods that are impure public goods because they're rival but not excludable. So rival, not excludable, crowded city sidewalk, or it could be a crowded highway. So in Corpus Christi, we have SPID, South Padre Island Drive, that goes through the city. It's the main, highway we have in the city. So this is impure public good because it is rival. What does rival mean? During traffic hours, me being on the road, congesting the road can actually prevent others from driving, right? Is it excludable? No, you can't tell people you can't go to the highway, right? Every citizen has a right because we're paying our taxes and we are the citizen of the city. So again, crowded sidewalk, which is not typical in Corpus Christi because we are a very beautiful beach town, very laid back. Population is not that huge, 350,000 people, beautiful town. So for my online students who are in Texas, have never been to Corpus Christi, come visit us. It's a beautiful beach town with really great vibes. Okay. So, for example, a crowded sidewalk is rival because your enjoyment reduced as more pedestrians also use the same sidewalk. Same as, for instance, if a concert venue is too packed, it kind of, it's rival. All right, so it's not excludable because clearly it's very difficult to prohibit pedestrians from using the sidewalk. You can't really tell them, hey, you're not wanted here, okay? Finally, so what is impure public good? Impure public goods are like cable TV, crowded city sidewalk, right? National defense is a pure public good. It is both non-rival, non-excludable. So, for instance, national defense is a classic example, or fireworks, right? It's non-rival because my consumption of national defense doesn't diminish others, because if you protect a country, right? We have the army and everything. So everybody benefits from this service. Okay, and then it's non-excludable because once the area is protected, everyone can consume the same amount of protection. And non-rival because my consumption doesn't prevent others from consuming it. Okay, public goods are like goods, connecting it to the previous chapter, with large positive externality. Okay, so consider a private good, ice cream. All right, so this is different, right? So next figure, we're going to talk about private goods. In figure 1, we're going to take a look at the market for ice cream. So assuming that you only consume ice cream and cookies are priced $1 per cookie. Okay, this is what we call numeraire good in economics. Numeraire good, what does it mean, Dr. G? A good that has a price that's equal to $1 each so that you can use it as a yardstick. Okay, so let's get started. Very exciting. All right, so demand for private good. All right, so this is the ice cream demand. Price of ice cream is here. Y-axis, quantity of ice cream is here. QIC, ice cream. Price of ice cream. We have two people, Ben and Jerry. Ben has individual downward sloping demand curve for ice cream. This is Ben's demand for ice cream. As you can see, price goes up. Ben's quantity demanded of ice cream goes down, right? Negative relationship. Jerry also has an individual downward sloping demand curve for ice cream. As you can see, Jerry's demand curve is the green one. It's little bit, inward shifted, which means Jerry has a weaker demand for ice cream at each price level. At price of $3 per cone, neither person demands a lot of ice cream. Okay, how did we find it, Dr. G? Start from the price, go hit the first demand curve. Jerry wants this much ice cream. Go down to the horizontal axis, start from $3, go hit the demand curve. Ben, read it off of the x-axis. This is Jerry's demand, this is Ben's demand. Not too much, right? That's not too strong. So how do we add up people's demand? Adding up Ben's and Jerry's individual demands gives societal demand, what I call, book calls it differently, right? Societal demand at, this is going to make up my social marginal benefit, by the way, it's coming up. Societal demand at $3. So we add this quantity with this quantity, horizontal add, because they can share their ice creams. You find the red dot, the societal demand, society's demand for ice cream. So if the price goes down, at price $2, both people demand more ice cream. Quantity demanded goes up, $2, go hit the demand for, okay, Jerry's this much, go hit the demand for Ben's this much. You add them horizontally, you go all the way down to here. Adding up Ben's and Jerry's individual demand gives societal demand at $2. You keep doing this. Adding up Ben and Jerry's individual demands at each price gives societal demand. As I told you a couple of seconds ago, social marginal benefit is the sum of the Ben's and Jerry's individual demands. Okay, so this is my social marginal benefit. We're connecting it with the previous chapter. Okay, so there is a market supply curve associated with producing ice cream. There is no externalities. Supply equals social marginal cost. This is also equal to the company's marginal cost. Just keep it in mind because this is coming up. This is going to be very useful in a second because we're going to connect it with marginal cost equals price. So this social marginal benefit, this one, red curve, and that's demand, society's demand, intersecting with social marginal. So social marginal benefit curve, this is society's demand intersecting with social marginal cost curve, supply curve, intersection point will give you socially optimal level of ice cream. So this is a competitive equilibrium at $2 per cone. So at $2, start from this equilibrium quantity, and this is the quantity, total quantity consumed. Go hit each individual's demand curves. Jerry will consume this much. Start from here, hit the Ben's demand curve. Ben will consume this much. So you will find this is very key for private goods. Everybody consume different quantities. For instance, I'm going to consume, for instance, today at least 98 ounces of water. My mother barely consumes 50 ounces of water. Okay. So this is not a public good. Private, we all consume different amounts. But for instance, there's a neighborhood park. We all consume the same amount of park provided to us, right? The park is there. We are forced to have the park. For instance, I am forced to consume. I don't have children, let's say. I am forced to consume the same amount of public education expenses spent through the taxes I pay, even though, let's say, I don't have kids. Does it make sense? I hope it does. So this is a public-private good difference. So this is kind of graph you would see, not animated graph you will see in typical textbooks. $2, Ben consumes 2 cones of ice cream. At $2, Jerry had a little bit less demand, right? 1 cone. So at $2, you add 2 plus 1. You get 3 cones. This is a socially optimal level consumed. But at this level, people share this amount, okay? In private goods markets, we horizontal sum demands of Ben and Jerry to get market demand, this guy, of ice cream. If Ben demands 2 ice cream cones at $2 and Jerry demands one ice cream cone at $2, then the market demand is going to be $3. 3 cones of ice cream at $2. I apologize. Okay, so this is basically saying the same thing. For a private good, consumers have different quantity demanded at the same price level. Why Jerry doesn't like it as much? He only consumes 1 cone. Ben likes it better. At the same price level of $2, Ben will consume 2, Jerry will consume 1. As price adjusted, each individuals change their quantity demanded. So mathematically, folks, let's take a look at Ben and Jerry's preferences over cookies and ice cream. Now we are introducing cookies. Why? Because cookies have also $1 numeric good price level. We are going to use it. It's going to be really useful in our analysis. Okay, so let's say this is Ben's preferences for cookies and ice cream. Jerry's preferences are a little different, right? It's a different utility function over cookies and ice cream. So utility maximization, if you remember, we are finding the optimal point for each individual. So each individual's indifference curves are going to be tangent to their individual budget constraint. If you have problems with this, please go back to chapter 2, Theoretical Tools of Public Finance, where we covered this in detail. Okay, so for Ben, what do we have? Okay, don't be scared. This is basically, look, marginal utility from ice creams divided by marginal utility for cookies. B is for Ben. Okay, this is for Ben. Just keep that in mind, Ben. Okay, so this is the marginal rate of substitution for Ben between ice cream and cookies. How is it measured? How many cookies I'm willing to give up to get 1 more unit of ice cream? Okay, so then this is going to be equal to because this is the slope of budget line. This is the slope of indifference curves. So indifference curve, this is the indifference curve slope. Okay, so marginal utility ratio for Ben has to be equal to price of ice cream and divided by price of cookies. There is a reason why we do this, because price of cookies is 1. It's going to disappear. It's going to be useful. It's coming up. For Jerry, we have the same thing. Marginal utility of ice creams divided by marginal utility of cookies for Jerry is equal to the marginal rate of substitution for Jerry between ice cream and cookies. At the optimal point, it's going to be equal to the ratio of price of ice cream and cookies. Okay, so let's say, and if you want to draw this, it's actually going to look like this. So this is, let's say, Ben's indifference curve of Ben. Okay, so what you have here is you're going to put ice cream and cookies in the axis, right? So it's going to be rise over run, right? We have the marginal utility of ice cream over cookies, but also we are considering the budget line. Let's say budget line is tangent here. So what's the slope of this budget line? Budget line slope will always be negative price of X divided by price of Y. Okay, so price of X, whatever you have in this X-axis, so ice cream goes here, cookies goes here. Oh, please don't get confused between IC. This is for indifference curve. So I'm going to just keep it I, or you can do utility for Ben. Okay. All right. So in equilibrium, price of ice cream is $2 and price of cookies is $1 because it's numeric good. So each individual must be indifferent between trading 2 cookies to get 1 ice cream. The quantity of ice cream consumed and cookies consumed such that there should be this trade-off. Okay, so let's take a look at the supply side. This is the supply of cookies and ice cream. Okay, ice cream cones are produced until the marginal cost is equal to marginal benefit. Okay, this is marginal benefit in terms of your marginal revenue, actually, not marginal benefit. So marginal revenue equals marginal cost. In competitive equilibrium, marginal benefit to the company, don't confuse marginal benefit to the individuals. So marginal cost equals marginal revenue. If you remember perfect competition, this is like, information from previous classes. The demand curve for perfectly competitive companies, demand equal to marginal revenue equal to average revenue, which is also equal to price. I am actually going to be recording principles of microeconomics classes next. Okay, so the marginal cost is equal to the price comes from this fact. Marginal cost equals marginal revenue, right? So marginal cost is J-U-shaped, and which automatically will be equal to the price. So you will have marginal cost equals to the price of ice cream. Keep that in mind. Recall that the price of cookies is $1. So marginal rate of substitution for Ben and Jerry. What was that? This was the marginal utility. Marginal utility for between ice cream and marginal utility of cookies for Ben and Jerry, right? You can write Ben and then Jerry, this one, is equal to the price of, this was price of ice cream divided by price of cookies, right? But this is going to be equal to 1. So it's by itself. So this came from the previous slide, right? From the optimal condition. Marginal rate of substitution, ratio of marginal utilities equal to the price ratio. But because the price of cookies is 1, you can just write it price of ice cream. But we know that from this optimal condition for companies, these perfectly competitive companies, you can, whenever you see price of ice cream, you can also equalize it to the marginal cost of ice cream. Okay, let's continue. This is getting really interesting. So marginal cost of ice cream, folks, look at this. Marginal cost of ice cream is simply this guy. Remember, marginal cost of ice cream. We're getting somewhere really important. We're going to basically say that this is what you have. The private goods optimal level of consumption in the society is actually socially optimal too for private goods. We're coming to that. We're building up to that. Okay, so without forgetting, so marginal, this is explaining what I just said. Marginal rate of substitution as a result, right, equals to the marginal cost of production. So private market equilibrium is also socially efficient level of utility maximizing choice, because when no market failures, you have marginal rate of substitution of individual people equal to social marginal benefit for any quantity of ice cream. So marginal value to society is equal to the marginal value to any individual in the perfectly competitive market. So for private goods, the socially optimal level is also the best for individual level. Because there are no market failures, okay, so I know that marginal rate of substitution is equal to social marginal benefit level, right? And no market failures, marginal cost is equal to social marginal cost. To study this part, write it down, okay? So you are going to get optimal level for private goods. So let the price to be determined by everybody's cumulative demand for the goods, social marginal benefit, and then everybody's interact that with everybody's marginal rate of substitution. So I choose how much water I'm going to drink, how much coffee I'm going to consume. Okay, so let's take a look at the trade-off between a public good, for instance, missiles. I'm talking about military missiles, right? And then a private good, cookies. So missiles are going to be different because let's say USA is equipped with so many missiles. That is, the presence of those missiles will be protecting me, but it's also protecting a little baby in next door or my neighbor who is 80 years old, right? So it protects everybody equally. It's not like it's my missile, okay? Can you imagine, like, Dr. G, you're gonna pay $1 million for this missile so that you'll be protected. Can you imagine a world like that without the military protection? Okay, let's take a look at the difference between public good and private good. So market for missiles and alternative use of the money is buying cookies for everyone, $1 each. rate. Okay, so same setting. Okay, this is now demand for a public good, price of missiles and the y-axis, y-axis, and quantity of missiles on the x-axis. Okay, so Ben has a downward sloping demand for missiles. All right, so this is how much missiles Ben wants. Actually, it's really hard to price public goods sometimes. For instance, what about saving an endangered, bald eagle? It's our symbol of our country, USA. I'm American too. So how much, if you go ask everyone, how much are you willing to pay to save bald eagles and flourish them? I would have a demand curve, okay? Maybe a student like yourself, let's say living in another country, you don't care about our bald eagles. You might be like, well, I'm not willing to pay much. You have zero demand. And some people who feel really strongly about it, they are very, passionate about conservation, so they may have a stronger demand. But it's the same idea, right? Missiles. Ben has downward sloping demand for missiles. Jerry also has a downward sloping demand curve. This is how we measure the willingness to pay for the first missile. Okay, so you ask Ben, hey, we're getting a missile number 1. How much are you willing to pay, sir? So Ben is like, I'll pay $2. Okay, while Jerry's willingness to pay for the first missile is $4. Okay, so Jerry has stronger preferences. Do you see the difference? Ben has stronger preferences for ice cream. Jerry has stronger preferences for national defense. Okay, how do we add these preferences? So at one unit of missile, you just add up how much they're totally willing to pay. Okay, so adding up Ben's and Jerry's willingness to pay gives a society demand for the first missile, which is they're willing to pay $6. Okay, great. So the second, missile is they're going to have lower willingness to pay with second missile. Why? Because they already have one missile, they're being protected. Let's say we're going to look at the fifth missile. Ben's willingness to pay for the fifth missile is $1 only, right? They already have 4 missiles. Like, why do we need a fifth one? And Jerry's willingness to pay for the fifth missile is $2. Again, add them up vertically, $3. So adding up their demand curves for willingness to pay for each quantity of missiles gives you society's demand. Why? Because first missile can be equally consumed by everybody. Fifth missile also can be equally consumed by everybody. It's non-rival, non-excludable. We buy a missile, I benefit from it. So this is how we find the social marginal benefit in public goods. This is really interesting. We add their demand curves vertically. There's a market supply curve associated with producing missiles. Cool. So this is the same. There is no externalities. So the intersection of social marginal cost of producing missiles, these are like defense companies, and this is a social marginal benefit of consuming missiles, intersection leading to a competitive equilibrium of 5 missiles. Ben and Jerry consume the same quantity. That's the difference. We're not giving them partially, right? So they are paying $3 for each missile. At 5 missiles, $15 are being paid. All right, total. All right, so vertical summation of public good markets. For public goods, we vertically sum demands for Ben and Jerry to get social value of public good. Ben is willing to pay. Ben is not willing to pay a lot, right? $1 for the fifth missile. Jerry is willing to pay $2 for the fifth missile. Society values the fifth missile $3. And what happens is that society will consume 5 missiles, and then social marginal benefits, social marginal cost, which is equal to the price level is $3 per missile. Okay, so with private goods, aggregate demand is found by summing the individual demands horizontally, right? Because I drink this water, nobody else can. Excuse me. With public goods, aggregate demand is found by adding them vertically, okay? So we're holding quantity fixed. We are asking people for their willingness to pay. Okay, preferences over cookies and missiles. So this is a little different, right? Ben's preferences over cookies and missiles, and Jerry's preferences over cookies and missiles. So this is the marginal missiles worth for Ben, okay? This is marginal rate of substitution, marginal utility of missiles over marginal utility of cookies, this ratio. And for Jerry, this is his marginal rate of substitution. What did we do in private markets? We did price of, ice cream, right? Ratio, and that was equal to marginal cost. So everybody in private markets, everybody did this. Marginal rate of substitution, then it was equal to the marginal cost or social marginal cost. Marginal rate of substitution for Jerry, he equalized it to the price level, social marginal cost. It was individual. Here we're going to have to add them up because they're consuming the same amount of missiles. Okay, so this is different. Social marginal benefit will be, for the next missile, will be sum of Ben and Jerry's marginal rate of substitution. So social marginal benefit equal to marginal rate of substitution for Ben over missiles and cookies, plus marginal rate of substitution for Jerry over missiles and cookies. So we did something totally different. We equalized social marginal cost individually to these guys, but here social marginal benefit is the sum of their. This comes in the tests, by the way, lots of tests, this question. So it's coming up, this part. The social marginal cost is marginal cost of missiles and cookies. So what happens is that social efficiency maximization requires, right? This is the missile marginal cost, requires sum of marginal rate of substitution of Ben and Jerry to be equal to marginal cost. For private markets, we had this individual marginal rate of substitution equals to marginal cost. Here, you have to sum them up, okay? So social efficiency is maximized when marginal cost is equal to the sum of marginal rate of substitution because the good is non-rival. A unit of missile can be consumed by all, and society would like the producer to take into account all consumers' preferences. So in general, this is a fact. Please don't memorize it, but know it. Private sector, if we left United States defense to private companies, let's say Elon Musk would have these, but it would be under provided. We cannot leave national defense to private companies. That's why government does our national defense, takes over. It takes up a huge chunk of our budget, but it is deterrent and it's important in the current state of the world. Okay, so private sector underprovides public goods because of the free rider problem. So a couple of rich people providing our national security, I would be like, I'm just a professor. I'm just going to, benefit from whoever the rich person provides us national security. That's not right, because we are going to have some security, but it will be underprovided. Okay, so let's take a look at two people again, Ben and Jerry. They're consuming two goods, ice cream and fireworks. Fireworks are like missiles, okay? Here, to make things a little bit easier, price of both goods are going to be $1, but fireworks are public good. Assume that Ben and Jerry have identical preferences. So now we're going to talk about private provision, how private provision actually causes under provision of public goods, which is fireworks. And we'll cover that in part 2. Thank you for bearing with me up to this point, folks. Please hit the like button on this video if you haven't done so, because that not only helps you, but it also helps other students to find my videos and finally earn higher grades in their public finance classes. Number 2, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you'll get a lot more videos on economics. I'll see you later in part 2.